Hi, I'm Ralph Preston. On Tuesdays, we have our Stroke Buddies Recovery and Science Zoom meeting, and that's what we're doing today. And we've got a couple of special guests from Houston Bionics, the two founders, Utku, Pehlivan, and Yagiz Sisman. And welcome, guys. And they're going to do a little presentation today on EXO-Rehab, which is their upper extremity rehabilitation device. Hope I got all that right, including your pronunciation of your names. So I don't know who's going to go first, but either one of you can take it away.
Definitely, Ralph, you did an amazing job in the pronunciations, and thank you. I'll share my screen. So again, once more, thank you, Ralph, and thank you, Stroke Buddies, for inviting us to be part of your community today. My name is Yagiz Sisman, and I'm one of the co-founders of Houston Bionics. It's an honor to connect with all of you and to share about what we've been working on. At Houston Bionics, we recognize that recovery after a stroke is not just about physical progress, it's about rebuilding your abilities, finding confidence in everyday tasks, and continuing to thrive in your daily life. Every recovery journey is unique, but one thing is clear: the strength and dedication each of you shows every day are truly remarkable. Your stories actually inspired us. We know that progress doesn't only happen during therapy sessions, it's the consistent effort, the practice at home, and the determination to keep going that truly makes a difference. That's why we created EXo-Rehab X to bring high repetition, high intensity therapy into the home environment, giving you the tool to continue your recovery on your own terms. And EXo-Rehab X is not a replacement for therapy, but a companion to it. It's a platform that fits seamlessly into your recovery, empowering you to stay engaged, work toward your goals, and integrate therapy into your daily routine, whether it's improving movement, building strength, or completing everyday tasks. EXo-Rehab X is here to support you. And today, I'm excited to share more about how EXo-Rehab X works and the impact it's had on stroke survivors. But first, I'd like to introduce my co-founder, Utku, who will share more about his background and what motivated us to create this platform.
Thank you, Yaz. And hello all. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Ralph. I'm Utku, one of the co-founders at Houston Bionics and CEO. I want to talk a little bit about my background and my motivation, our motivation, how and why we came up with the idea, why are we working on the rehabilitation field. My personal background is in robotics, mechatronics engineering. As Houston Bionics, 2 out of 3 co-founders are technical co-founders, engineers. After graduating from my bachelor's, I got the opportunity to attend Rice University in Houston, Texas, hence the name Houston in the company name. And that's where I was introduced to probably the most fascinating sub-area in robotics called rehabilitation robotics. Rehabilitation robotics is an engineering effort to make neurorehabilitation more effective, more fun, and more, I should say, understandable from the patient point of view. We know that neurorehabilitation takes a lot of time. It takes it's a long journey and it's very labor intensive. And as engineers, we try to provide complementary tools. And that's basically a very hot topic in robotics. I can confidently say that. So at Rice University, the robotics department has a very rare opportunity or capability, I should say. The biggest medical center in the entire world, Texas Medical Center, is literally right across the street. So as a Rice graduate student, I was able to actually go and talk to therapists, clinicians, patients, and get their input to basically make more meaningful iterations, come up with better solutions. And that was my routine for the 6 years during my PhD. Develop exoskeletal devices, test, get valuable feedback from the users, and iterate. I was involved in many projects. I authored or co-authored 18 scientific papers on the field, and those papers have been cited more than 1,300 times. And my experience with the patients who were kind to get involved in our studies were almost always the same. Why are we stopping to use this exoskeletal device? Because we have scientific study protocols, we had to limit the amount of exposure. That's what we use, intervention exposure time. That's why we had to, in order to scientifically meaningful, we needed to basically stop at some point. But patients were asking for, how can I get more of this? And that's kind of the motivation for Houston Bionics. How can we make this kind of technology more available to the masses, to everyone, not just some people who can go to some clinics, but can we bring this technology to patients' homes? Our actually biggest motivation is the fact that can we make direct and positive impact to people's lives? Because during those scientific studies, we have seen so many great stories, even if it can be seen as small improvement, but some people said they were able to pull the blanket after just 2-3 weeks of study. That's a huge improvement, and that we can see and get motivated more than anything else. So that's basically how we started Houston Bionics. It's basically a combination of my experience through my PhD and making it more available for the masses. So at this point, I can leave it to Yaz to get more in detail about the platform.
Definitely. And before I get into more detail about a platform, I'd like to share a story, an example of how EXO-Rehab X can make a difference by introducing you to one of our users. So this individual had a stroke in 2018 at the age of 55 and lives in New York City with his wife. And like many stroke survivors, he faced years of traditional rehab and tried several at-home devices, but unfortunately, none of them delivered the progress he hoped for. When we met him, it had been 5 years since his stroke, and both he and his wife were feeling stuck and unsure of how to move forward. When they discovered EXO-Rehab X, they said, "This is our last try." And now in the before video, what you will see him sitting far from the table, struggling to lift his hand despite having sufficient room between him and the table. But after just 2.5 months of using EXO-Rehab X, he's sitting much closer to the table and now can smoothly lift his hand, a movement he hadn't been able to do for years. It's important to note that this progress like this depends on several factors, including consistent use and individual circumstances. For him, this improvement has been life-changing, helping him regain confidence and independence in his daily life. And as you already know, consistent movement therapy plays a critical role in stroke recovery. It's not just about the work done in therapy sessions, but also the effort and the practice in between that help drive meaningful progress. Many of you may have heard from your therapist that high repetition movement therapy performed 5 to 6 times a week is often recommended to support neuroplasticity. This process helps the brain relearn and regain control over movement. Even after achieving your recovery goals, regular practice can help maintain those hard-earned gains and prevent setbacks. But as you have likely experienced, staying consistent with this level of practice isn't always easy. Factors like travel to clinics, the cost of therapy, or simply the availability of resources can create challenges that make it difficult to meet these recommendations. That's where EXO-Rehab X comes in. It's a platform designed to empower stroke survivors to perform movement-based exercises independently in a home environment by enabling consistent practice at your convenience. It helps you stay engaged with your recovery while complementing the care you're already receiving from your occupational therapist. Now, let's take a closer look at how EXoRehab X overcomes these challenges and why it's an effective companion to your recovery. Starting with the complete upper extremity therapy, recovery involves creating synergy between all the joints in your arm. EXoRehab X supports exercise that starts with the shoulder, helping to build a strong foundation for better control of the forearm and the wrist. This comprehensive approach aims to ensure that all areas are addressed in the recovery process. Second, the lightweight exoskeleton design supports the guided movements that replicates the benefit of occupational therapy. By helping to prevent unwanted compensatory movements, it ensures exercises are done safely and effectively. And finally, AI-powered therapy platform make recovery engaging and consistent. The platform includes gamified therapy sessions, and these games encourage high repetitions, which are recognized as important for neuroplasticity and functional improvement. The system also provides feedback and track progress to keep users motivated and informed about their journey. And here's Mary. Her Sunday morning recovery shows how easily EXoRehab X fits into life, stacking her rehab with a quick 15-minute session, eye mask on, relaxed, and making recovery part of her routine. And with that real-life examples, I'd like to leave the mic back to Utku to share about our clinical findings.
Thank you. Of course, real-life examples are great, but we need to support those with actual clinical studies. As I said, during my PhD, my graduate studies, I have worked on many projects. So with those, we were able to show exoskeletal intervention, high repetition, high intensity therapy actually works. But there are two studies I want to focus on that specifically uses EXoRehab X. I'll try to share my screen. I just held this. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. So in the first study, the objective was basically comparing the effect of rehabilitation outcomes, effect of an upper limb exoskeleton training program using EXoRehab X with conventional therapy on upper limb motor functions in individuals with chronic stroke. All 24 participants were chronic stage. They were randomly assigned to either exoskeleton group or conventional therapy group. Interventions were matched in terms of duration, meaning same session number and same session duration. And total of 12 sessions were performed 2 times per week for 6 weeks. And their primary outcome was, I'm pretty sure most of you familiar with this term, Fugl-Meyer upper extremity score. And the results were very significant. After just 12 sessions of training, the mean Fugl-Meyer upper extremity score increased almost threefold in exoskeletal group that used EXoRehab X compared to the conventional group. 40% of EXoRehab X group participants demonstrated clinically meaningful improvement that's beyond 6 or higher improvement, while none of the participants in the conventional therapy group showed minimum clinically important difference. So when we look at what caused this, what made it work for exoskeletal group compared to conventional group, the number of repetitions in the exoskeletal group were almost 5 times higher. They were just playing a game, while on the conventional therapy, they were doing given repetitions with a therapist. I will be sharing this study. So it is not, it is basically published in a scientific journal that's not publicly available. There is a paywall, but I'll share this with you guys. And in the second study, the investigation was in a different way. In the second study, let me share that study as well, so that you will have the if my goal is to basically show the title of the paper at least, but as I said, we will share these studies. In the second study, the scientists and therapists investigated the impact of EXO-Rehab X on respiratory capacity in stroke survivors. And this study has been published in a very prestigious journal called Neurological Sciences by Springer Nature. For stroke survivors, since their mobility is reduced, unfortunately, this often leads to a decline in respiratory function as well. That significantly affects the quality of life. In the shown randomized control study, the scientists basically worked with 34 patients. The study was conducted over 6 weeks, and it revealed remarkable outcomes. For stroke patients using EXoRehab X, they experienced significantly greater improvements in lung capacity, measured by some, so this is forced expiratory flow in the first second, basically the amount of air you breathe in, and another metric they checked was forced vital capacity. So these were, again, directly checking the lung capacity by objective measurements. The group also showed reduced dyspnea, which is basically feeling shortness of breath, a crucial step toward restoring confidence in daily activities. Basically, in this research is a testament that EXoRehab X is enabling stroke survivors to go beyond traditional recovery and empowering them to regain vital functions. So, as I said, we will share both studies, both papers with you, and it might be fun. It will be technical, but it might be fun to go over them and read them. So with that, yeah.
Yeah, with that, I'll take the mic. And Ralph, thank you so much. And Ralph and others, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's been an absolute privilege to share about what we've been doing up to date and how it can support your recovery journey. We truly admire the strength and determination each of you has demonstrated every day, and we are here to support you in any way we can. We understand that every recovery journey is unique, and finding the right tools and approaches is essential. That's why we offer free one-on-one sessions with survivors and caregivers. And these 30-minute sessions are an opportunity to learn more about how EXoRehab X works, discuss your specific needs and goals, evaluate whether our platform is the right fit for your recovery journey at this moment. And with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions you may have, whether it's about the platform, our approach, or how EXoRehab X can fit into your recovery journey. Thank you.
I have a question. How often do you use your equipment?
Utku, you want to take this question?
Sure, definitely. So the dosage, the question of dosage is a big unknown even for the conventional therapy. But if we follow the clinical study that we ran, what we did is try to reach 200 to 300 repetitions per joint per day. So they basically set the dosage to 15 minutes but with the aim of reaching 200 to 300 repetitions per joint. So if you look at the research, the literature, there is a strong kind of threshold. If you want to learn a movement, you want to repeat almost 400 times, 300 to 400 times, and you need to trigger your whole system 5 times, at least 5 times a week. So those are the dosages that we suggest, but again, it is a kind of open-ended question. And again, especially for the stroke rehabilitation, in more specifically other than neurorehabilitation, the more you put repetition, more work, you basically see more outcome, even if it is not immediately visible to you. If the movement quality and capacity is measured by known metrics such as Fugl-Meyer is one of them, you see basically one-to-one almost relation. The more you do repetitions, of course, feeling comfortable, not feeling any discomfort or anything that's going to lead to muscle injury. But as much repetition you put, you will see more outcomes.
So you're saying in 15 minutes you should be able to reach 500 reps, right?
Eventually, so we have five different movement joints. As you would appreciate, on the distal part for the wrist, the movement itself is small, so you will reach more repetition with the wrist movement. But for example, for elbow flexion extension, the frequency is going to be like much smaller. For the clinical study, we had to limit it in terms of amount of time. So the goal was to limit every joint to 15 minutes. But again, the goal is to basically hit 300 to 400 repetitions per day. Not every single day, but 5 times a week on the movement that you want to improve is basically, and that's what we have observed too from our users too.
I can kind of answer that also. For anybody out there in YouTube land, if you don't know it already, most of us stroke survivors who got better did a lot of it at home. Rehab is and PT is great, but you have to look at them like your piano teacher. In this case, the EXO-Rehab is supplementing what the teacher's teaching you. But typically, the people that sit around and mostly do PT a couple times a week get better a lot slower than the people that engage every day. I did. I may have missed a day or two, but I did every day for 15 months, and I did all I could every day. So the answer to that question is twofold: do it every day you can, and do as much as you can every day. I don't think there's any studies that, other than if you wore your muscles out, I don't think there's any studies that show there's such a thing as excessive repetitions.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly.
I got a couple of comments that might lead to a little discussion. One is, I like the fact that you mentioned and that it prevents unwanted movements and unwanted muscle involvement, because as you guys know, you've built an upper extremity device, but as soon as people start trying to lift their arms or whatever, they do all kinds of compensatory movements. They start hiking their shoulder, they'll twist their body, they'll get, the brain will have them tell them to do anything they can to get that arm where they want. And I'm a big believer in Of course, it's not possible, like right out of the gate, to do perfect movement, but the closer you can get to better movement, then you're not building bad habits. And in my own personal recovery, I found that when I engaged in things that gave me bad habits, it was really hard and long and time-consuming process to break those bad habits. So I think that's a real plus to this device because especially if somebody can get it early on. Of course, anybody else out there in YouTube land who doesn't know that neuroplasticity lasts a lifetime, the example they gave was a guy who was 5 years out. That's the question we always get in the groups is, can I get better after 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever? The answer is yes. As I say at the end of car commercials, your results may vary, but I've generally found, I'm not a physical therapist, but I've worked with about 14 people locally, some for years. And I found that anybody that puts in the effort gets better. Do they get all the way better or where they want to be better? That's a judgment call. But in every case, people who put in the effort get better. So put in the effort. One other thing, and maybe you guys can elaborate on this. I think when I was looking on the website, I saw some stuff about involvement. There's activities that you do with it that appear on the screen. Do I have that right?
Ralph, is this a question around the games? So in our platform, while you're doing the movements, you're actually playing the games. Utku can give a more detailed information on what those games are. But again, the games are provide visual feedback back to the survivor, show them the successful repetitions, encourage them to stay motivated and focused over this 15-minute journey per joint.
And not only that, thank you guys. So for the neuroplasticity, as you perfectly described, Ralph, you need repetition. That's one thing. You need intensity. Do not give too much break between your therapies. And also you need to get challenged. So all the system is sensorized. On every single joint, we have a position sensor looking at your movement. We basically set up the games based on the user's range of motion capability on that given day. And during the games, if the user is repeatedly successful, we just use a concept that basically does not frustrate the user, but also still challenges them in terms of range of motion, in terms of movement speed. So we want to always keep the user at the edge, push them as much as possible, without frustrating them, without making the games too challenging, but we still challenge them every day. If they are repeatedly successful, we slightly increase. If we still see success, we even increase it more. So that's basically the idea of learning from the user and then pushing them through a visual representation, a video game like visual feedback.
Well, I did a couple of studies on using gaming in terms of recovery with the Medical University of South Carolina Stroke Recovery Research Center. And it's always a mouthful. And basically, they found a few things. Well, it's pretty obvious to, well, one thing, of course, is there's a basic principle. Somebody tells you something, you learn a certain amount. So if you hear it or read it, you learn a certain amount. If you get to see additional materials like visuals and stuff, you learn more. The more senses that are involved in recovery in this case, the more effective it is. I think also my experience with watching people I was videoing was they got involved. Involvement is like, you have reading or hearing, you got visuals, and then you got involvement. And I think involvement is real good because you get distracted. Anybody who's done a lot of rehab knows that it's boring after a while, and you just got to do it. So I think the gaming aspect is an excellent idea. You also brought up because I think people spend more time with it. If they're enjoying it, they might do more than 15 minutes.
Yeah,
That,
yeah, exactly.
that was that was kind of the result of the tests they did. Of course, they wrote up official papers, and I'm just paraphrasing my experience
Yeah.
with them in terms of being the videographer and witnessing what happened. And one thing, yeah, challenging is really important. So you did mention that. So I assume that they've got more and more difficult levels. So anybody that games, we have a gaming after stroke group actually, because you got 300 gamers who are trying to get back to gaming, and also they talk about various games that can be used for rehabilitation purposes. Anyway, anybody who knows anything about gaming, and I don't know much, but I know they're always going. I've finally got to like level 45, so
Mhm.
it's like a challenge to work their way up through the system, and that's important in terms of what we were talking about involvement, but it's really even more important in terms of plateauing. And you guys know this. I'm saying this for people out in YouTube land. Plateauing occurs when the brain will get used to anything that you throw at it long enough. And so
Mhm.
plateauing occurs generally when the brain's no longer being challenged in a way that, that pushes it. So, we always encourage people to mix up their routines and make sure they keep pushing themselves so they don't plateau. So that was another thing I liked about the gaming aspect and your philosophy on recovery, because when somebody makes a device and they don't really understand how it works, and that's not typical, typically they do, but there's certain scientific principles in effect here, and you guys seem to be hitting on some of the major ones like plasticity and challenging the brain and involvement. Those are three big things in my opinion. So uh, that's
That
my
was.
that's my
Thank you, Ralph.
2 cents. That's my 10 cents worth.
Thank you, thank you. I just want to also include one more thing. There is a whole subsection of rehabilitation robotics that's directly focusing on type of games. We already implemented this, but we are not explicitly mentioning on our website. But we also have a multiplayer platform so that users can train together. Right now, our games are kind of um, gaming against each other, kind of Airtable, or we have another game, very fun game. There's a crazy chicken running around. Person tries to catch it. If you cannot, your opponent will catch it. These are games against each other. That's very motivating for some, but we are also working on new type of games that you can work together. So we also have that multiplayer platform to basically, you just talked about getting bored or getting used to, as you said, brain can get used to maybe even different type of games. In order to get around that or provide more options, we also have that multiplayer platform with adding new games readily.
So users can, in a sense, play against other users through the
Yes,
platform?
exactly. Get
Okay, well,
online
I'm
and
glad you
then
brought that up. It's, women a little less, but, guys, that's a big, guys are, well, some women are competitive. I'm not
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to stereotype or generalize, but that's great because, well, now you've introduced community because
Yes.
the reason we have these groups is people feel like isolated and alone. They think they're the only one
Yes.
going through it. So if they enjoy the games and the product and the rehab and they can find other people, then they could play with them, against them, however you want to look at it, and build more personal community for themselves. which I think is also a good thing. One thing I wanted to bring up, and it's an opportunity to give you guys a chance to address what you're working on with this. Currently, it's the device is privately funded, and you guys have a reasonable reasonable monthly costs. I've seen others that are at least twice as high as yours, and no interest, which is always good. I'll assume that you are involved in some kind of trials and such to get Medicare and insurance to pay for it, because that would be a big game changer for stroke survivors and also for Houston Bionics in terms of not everybody, a lot of us, I'm not on disability, but a lot of stroke survivors are on disability and they run pretty tight budgets. So I would think getting Medicare to approve it, and which I guess, does that come through maybe approved trials through FDA maybe? I'm not sure of the whole process there. Maybe I should just get quiet now and let you guys talk about it, because I'm at the limit of my knowledge.
So thank you, Ralph, for bringing this up. We actually do have FDA. We are FDA Class 1 listed and registered. So yeah, that part is already checked. We do have trial period for up to 10 days. We bring the device. Again, we do the one-on-one session, 30 minutes. We evaluate the need and the feasibility. And then once a survivor makes a decision to, hey, I want this platform, we give a 10-day free trial period. We do have two options. They can purchase the platform or they can subscribe to the platform. We do have 3-month option as well. But right now we are also pushing the insurance side of it, the reimbursement side of it. So we are actually evaluating case by case. Again, in those one-on-one sessions, we'll be happy to discuss more per individual needs and the situation.
Right.
Yes, we already starting to push forward for the reimbursement path, because we know like every dollar counts, even though it's affordable compared to the currently available solutions in the market. As you said it, Ralph, half the price almost. It's still the money, and we're pushing the reimbursement side of the things to make it even more accessible to a broader survivor population.
Okay, so insurance is starting to come around. A lot of people out there in YouTube land, survivors aren't familiar with the whole process. I'm a little bit more familiar. There's a whole transition process from making the device, getting it in trials, getting it approved, getting reimbursements from Medicare and insurance. So you're in the middle, working your way towards having.
Absolutely. We are pushing that front. And as you know, Ralph, like things can take long with insurance. Like those are long-lasting discussions, as everybody will know. But we're making significant progress. So this is why we're inviting everybody to connect with us one-on-one, understand what their insurance is, and from a financial assistance perspective, things we can do for them throughout this period.
Okay, well, I thought I'd bring that up. Basically, stroke survivors, when they look at something like this, they want to know, like, what's in it for me? How does it work? How's it going to benefit me? And how am I going to get it? Or can I get it? And how am I going to get it if I decide that it's something I want to try? So I was playing a little devil's advocate for you there and bringing up a couple of points that I'm thinking people watching and listening to this would want to know.
Is there a sample we can see of an individual using the equipment?
Yes, we do have the videos, which we'll be happy to provide. And also in those one-on-one sessions, we do a live demonstrations depending on the needs. So you're actually like seeing the device in action and asking questions.
Well, and I can I can put links to anything and everything. I always put contact information, but I can put links to anything and everything you want in the description underneath the YouTube video when I edit it and post it. I'll leave the live stream up for people to watch until I edit it. Basically, I just put the graphics on the head and tail and cut out any of the shop talk that got recorded. So I can put, like, if you have a YouTube channel or individual videos on your website or whatever links you want, and I think that the more that you would show people, somebody's interested, like when he was asking, would really enjoy seeing how it works, because that's one of the questions. What's in it for me? How does it work? Do I want it? How do I get it? So
Certainly. We'll be happy to provide the additional documentation, including the clinical studies that Utku mentioned, along with the video of how the device actually plays out in action by a stroke survivor. Happy to provide those inputs.
But I also, when I posted back in I posted this in about 15 or 16, maybe more than that, stroke groups. When I go post the finished video, I also can put like all links and things there so that they can see them and go to them from the Facebook group, and in addition to the description. I wish YouTube had not changed. They used to put 2 or 3 or 4 lines. Now they got like about 8 words and it says more.
Yes.
So you don't see as much about, I used to put a line, that said all the links to videos and things we talk about in the meeting are, below this, but you don't get enough words anymore. Anyway, that's a YouTube thing, and I don't think we're going to tell you Google what to do. So, Martha or Winnie, either of you got any more questions?
I really wanted to see how the equipment works.
Martin, perhaps I can show you one of the slides that we recently presented. Let me share my screen for real quick.
Sure. I left it on.
So this is actually a quick video of how the device works while a stroke survivor is using it. Initially present the device itself, but if you give it a moment, you'll see a survivor utilizing this platform. Again, it's a lightweight device. It's almost a half of a chair, the footprint. So this is one movement. This can be your laptop, this can be your TV, and this is another movement. And again, as a stroke survivor, you do not need any supervision for the on and off. This is just showing to the game, so I'm gonna skip this part. I'm gonna pause this part, or I'll leave it open. Again, you do not need any supervision to on and off to the platform. This is simply the patented design itself actually enables stroke survivors to use this platform independently, and that's the key, because we expect you to do 5 to 6 times a therapy per week for a long period of time. And this is what we wanted to achieve with this platform, to bring independence, so you do not need anybody to start using the device. Simply using your unaffected side, you can put your arm inside the exoskeleton shell and start using it.
And the individual can put it on himself then?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
that's key, because a lot of things like the little robotic gloves from China that Amazon's got 100 different brands on. One of the biggest complaints is they're difficult to get on. A lot of people say they can't get them on. A lot of people say they have to have help, and almost everybody says order a size bigger because they're hard to get on. But that's neither here nor there. Um, so one question that came up when I was watching that video is how many different movements are there that are programmed into this thing? I assume since it's robotics that it's got some type of it's helping you to move your arm. And so are there a lot of different movements? Because you've got a lot of things, lifting your arm, you got rotating, you got straightening your elbow,
So
you got straightening your wrist.
I can talk to that. So we have 5 joints, one on the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
That's called shoulder flexion extension,
Mm-hmm.
elbow flexion extension, forearm pronation supination,
Pronation.
wrist flexion extension, as you did this. And there's also this wrist radial deviation movement.
Right.
So the device itself is canceling out its own weight. So it's gravitation, there is no gravitational load on the user. But we do not, right now, we do not provide any assistance. Providing active assistance it has its own challenges from my PhD. If you provide too much assistance, which is most of the time the case, user just let the robot do the movement. We called it they ride the robot basically. It's not going to provide you any outcome, and there are actually studies that show too much assistance is basically, I mean, providing close to zero outcomes. But on this particular version, the exoskeletal shell makes sure you are doing the movement correctly. We collect the data from you, even if the movement capability is very limited, we collect that, set up the games accordingly, and then through visual feedback, we push you to move. But we are working on a new version with new modalities that will be coming out soon. But currently, that's the case. 5 joints, no gravitational load on the user, but we are relying on users' capability. Even if it's very small, we basically capture that and then build on top of that.
Okay. Well,
Wait, so
go ahead.
so there's a tape or something that goes back to you folks to judge how well the individual is working and give them the feedback then, right? In case they're doing it wrong and lifting the elbow or something.
So the mechanical part basically does not allow you to. It is not hurting you, but it's firm. It's basically padded accordingly, but it is not allowing you to basically do the movement in a wrong way, I should say. So you are basically constrained mechanically to do this movement, to see the movement, basically. And the device is basically isolated. You start with one joint, lock the others. As I said, most of the design went into you being able to use it with your unaffected side. You can lock the remaining joints, and you can mentally also focus on that movement. You know what movement you are working on. Let's say elbow flexion extension. We capture, even if your movement is very small, we capture that. Lots of our users have gave us feedback about they didn't know they had that kind of move, but they can see. Like we basically use the sensor, show them their movement capability, and then start the game. And during the game, without them noticing, we are pushing them. We are using multiple proven algorithms. One is called just noticeable difference. You are not noticing it because we are keeping it just noticeable, but we are pushing you if you are successful during the training. And as you said, you might be doing wrong at the very beginning, but as you learn the move itself and also the device, how to use it, you basically focus more and more correct movement.
Right. A lot of times if you're, well, even at therapy or at home, you do something called blocking. So I have a friend who took a gait belt and tied it around his arm so he could do, he tied his arm to his chest so he could practice this movement. And so it sounds like one of the things that you do is block and isolate and promote proper movement.
Exactly.
And okay, if it's 3 times more effective, then you obviously are concerned with the big takeaway from any device, which is carryover. So obviously, if it's 3 times more effective, you're getting some carryover. How do you do, not how, do you do exercises? Do you try and mimic the same movements without the device as you progress, or how do you transition to this carryover thing? You know, a lot of times when we talk or teach people about, you know, like doing passive movement, moving
Yeah.
your fingers or whatever,
Yeah.
you always talk about like try and do it with your brain, try and
Yeah.
do less and less with, you know, with whatever's assisting you, and do more and more with the brain, because that's how
Yeah.
carryover happens. So I'll let you guys talk about that.
Exactly. So that's a great question, Ralph. So in the activities of daily living, there are moments directly related to those isolated moments, of course. Um, in my PhD work, we always investigated from isolated to functional, and we did see isolated therapy ends up providing functional outcomes, and Fugl-Meyer score is basically evaluating the capability of daily living activities. But we do provide a list of daily activities, such as trying to opening a jar. Since our device has a forearm pronation supination, which is directly related to that opening a jar movement, or holding your exactly like this, exactly like that. Yep. And then shoulder flexion extension. It's kind of reaching movement, but as we show with Dimitri, putting your arm on the table. It's a simple move. It's very understandable, and it actually includes both shoulder flexion and elbow flexion extension, like this. So we do provide basically a list to, once you are done with the therapy or the daily therapy, try this list of moments. Again, it will not be maybe overnight, but you'll see the improvement. And also, probably one thing we didn't touch, we didn't focus too much, but still very important. During the games, we collect the data of the patient in terms of range of movement, in terms of movement quality, in terms of number of repetitions. We capture those information. That's basically very one of our main distinctions from conventional therapy. Those kind of objective measurements is not readily available for most of the therapies. You can, at the end of the day, you can check your performance. What was your range of motion on your elbow on that given day? And you can go back 2 weeks ago and check. Maybe you cannot realize, with your own eyes, or your even your therapist cannot say, but there is a, let's say, 3%, 4% improvement, and if you are consistent, you will see that that range of motion is going to keep increasing.
So that data is available to the user so that they can chart their progress. Because I always
Exactly.
use the analogy, you can't watch your hair go gray because you wake up every morning and look in the mirror. And the same thing's true a lot of times. I also use the analogy of, like, you know, stroke recovery is somewhat variable. So I use the analogy, look at the stock market. You know, it goes like this, it's going on great. Whoa, okay. And you have to look at the overall curve, not at the individual.
Exactly. That's a great analogy.
Well, you got to look for the forest, not the trees.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, oh, one more thing. I'd be remiss if I did not say that Polly Hutchinson said she wished to say hello to both of you, and she wished she could be here. I would have liked to had her here. She's got a lot of appointments because she's always like, she's always got good questions. Like me, she's I'm like her, I'm very knowledgeable about stroke. She's very knowledgeable about stroke, and she's familiar with you guys and your device, and would have been great to have her here, but she had a therapy appointment, I believe, so she wanted me to say hi to you.
We
So,
also
It's
send it back to Polly. She's a wonderful person. Many times we connected with her, and Ralph, I agree with what you just said. She has great questions. I think the list of questions she has in her repository never ends. This is great for us because we learned a lot from her as well.
right.
Thank you for sharing the message. Kind
No
words.
problem, but we often, she and I do similar, do perform the same kind of function often in that I ask questions that I know the answer to sometimes, or I ask questions that I'm not sure if the presenter's overlooking or whatever, something that stroke survivors would be interested in. I did several times today to keep the conversation going, and Polly's good at that. So, Whitney, Martha, either of you have anything, or if either Utku or Yagiz either of you had anything more to add, go ahead. Otherwise, I would, get off and let you get back to the important work you're doing.
I
Thank you
think
very
I got all my questions answered.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
Ralph, Vinny and Martha and others watching, thank you so much for having us today. It was a true pleasure and honor to be here again once more. And yeah, you guys are doing the great work of spreading the word and sharing this knowledge like this with many survivors in need and searching. So thank you all for doing this.
no problem.
Thank you.
No
Thank you.
problem. Knowledge is power, and knowledge gives you the ability to take a more focused approach. The more you know, the more focused your approach to recovery can be. And I believe that a focused approach is better than a bouncing off the walls approach. So
Yeah.
there you have it. So thank you
Thank you.
both for taking the time, and we appreciate it. Those of us here appreciate it. Those of us watching on YouTube Live appreciate it, and those who are going to watch this on YouTube in the future appreciate it. And just a final reminder, anybody out there in YouTube land, there'll be a bunch of links and contact information and such in the description underneath this video, so just click the word more and they'll reveal themselves to you. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can.